Look at this. I'm back. I'm back on a Wednesday night. And I'm actually sounding semi-human this time. It's kind of nice. This is not AI. This is not Kurt Angle. This is not Megatron or anybody else. This is the Solomonster, and this is your AEW Dynamite review. It is Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. And I came back on a good night, too, because I largely enjoyed this episode of Dynamite tonight. So we have, I feel, more good than bad to talk about. I just want to say thank you to everybody who has been sending messages and funny messages and all the nice things that everybody had to say, all the concern. I am feeling better. I'm not sounding 100% yet, which you may or may not be able to tell, but we're getting there slowly but surely. As I recover from this wacky virus, whatever the hell it is, we're still trying to figure out what it is. But thank you. Hopefully that will be the only show I miss on Monday. I'm sorry I missed the Raw review, but I really didn't want to miss more than that. And my doctor told me no shows. He said no shows for at least 2 or 3 days. So I missed the one. I said I'm going to try to get back for the second one. So here we are. But yes, Dynamite tonight was in Atlanta. And the show was highlighted by a match in the main event between Swerve, Strickland, and Ricochet. This is the match that they've been hyping up now for several weeks. And they got the main event spot on this show. Very clear from what they did tonight. And I kind of suspected this coming in, but kind of clear from what they did tonight that this is only phase 1. There will be at least a phase 2, if not a phase 3 to this program. This was a win for Ricochet here in the first match, probably the biggest win he's had yet. Certainly one of them in AEW, beating a former AEW world champion and stealing his robe. Actually, it was Prince Nana's robe. He walked off with Nana's embassy robe, which obviously has a lot of history behind it, a lot of sentimental value to it. So this feud is going to continue on. I thought they had a pretty good match in the main event, but it was clear that they were holding back from having that, epic match because that match is yet to come. So I thought they delivered in that closing segment. A lot of other things on the show that I enjoyed. No surprise here. Timeless Toni Storm, Mariah May. They obviously have a rematch coming up next weekend, not this weekend coming up, for the AEW Women's World Championship. They're going to be in Australia. I'll be talking about that show in a little bit. And tonight we had Timeless Toni Storm doing her best Mariah May impression. And I tell you what, I for one would not mind at all if Toni Storm wanted to do her Mariah May impression every single week on this show going forward. You get no argument out of me. I thought she was great tonight. Always good to see Timeless Toni, not only on Collision, but actually wrestling here on Dynamite. So that whole segment was one of the highlights for me as well tonight. We had Powerhouse Hobbs was back. If you recall, last week he was not medically cleared. They had something planned for him. They couldn't do it. I suspect whatever they were going to do last week is what they did on the show tonight. Because supposedly they were going to film some sort of street fight with Hobbs and Big Bill on Collision last week, which was taped after Dynamite. And they ended up doing that Tupelo, or not Tupelo, the Mid-South street fight, I think, between FTR and the Death Riders. So anyway, we had Hobbs back on the show, and we had Hobbs and Big Bill beating the hell out of each other. Brawling all over the place, brawling over the announce desk. One guy's choke slamming one security guy. The other guy's like, oh, okay, I could do that too. Choke slamming the other security guy. Just two big guys beating the hell out of everybody, basically. I mean, what's not to like about that? And Hobbs and Bill are two of the, kind of younger AEW names. I say younger, not that they're the youngest on the roster, but two of those AEW names that I want to see do bigger and better things. And it's clear they have already begun to build towards Big Bill splitting away from the learning tree. It's not happening just yet, but you could see the signs. They're dropping little hints of it. Hobbs, of course, is coming off a loss to Jon Moxley for the AEW World Championship, but the key with him is just getting him consistently on television so he doesn't just fall through the cracks. And so far, it seems like they're making an effort to do that, which is exactly what they need to be doing. So what little we got from them tonight, I thought was good. There was a great tag team match on this show as well. Brody King, Buddy Matthews, of course, no Malachi Black anymore. They're on their own, doing the tag team thing. They had a great match against the Callis family. And maybe the best part, honestly, of the entire show, they kept the Death Rider stuff to a minimum. They kept the Death Rider stuff to the opening segment, so we got it at the beginning, and we didn't get it again after that. That's good. The less, the better. Until one day, we won't have it at all. But that's too much to ask right now. So I'm all for limiting the Death Rider segments to one at the very beginning of the show and then moving on and not speaking of them again. And that's what they did tonight. So I have no complaints about what they did with them. And I thought this was the best Dynamite episode that I have seen in a long time. We'll talk about some of the other things as well. There were a few other segments that I liked. There, of course, had to be at least one huge leap in logic, which we'll talk about with the opening match. But maybe it could also be that I'm just in a really good mood tonight because just before I came on here live, I saw the great news that the polar bear is coming back to New York. Now, you know, it's the winter time and, you know, the polar bears, they love the cold. So the polar bear is coming back to New York. Pete Alonso re-signing with the New York Mets, 2 years, $54 million with a $10 million signing bonus. But we got him back. He may end up leaving after a year. I don't know how it's going to work. But at least for this season coming up, we got him back. Which means we're going to have a lineup with Lindor, Alonso, and Soto. So if you're in Queens, you're eating well this season. Maybe that's why I'm in a good mood too. I'd be lying if I said that didn't have something to do with it. But I had to wear, with the great news, I had to wear the Mets shirt here. The Mets shirt, the Mets colors, you got to do it. This is your AEW Dynamite review for Wednesday, February 5th, 2025. I am the Solomonster. Do me a favor, like and subscribe. We just passed 84,000 subscribers a few days ago, so thank you guys for that. I appreciate it. Super chats are open. You will see them. Oh my God.
He appears. I believe in the monster.
Oh my goodness.
I believe in the monster. Cause they love him in London, in Paris, in Tokyo, America, Scotland, and Canada, and Mexico. They say, I believe in the monster. I believe in the monster.
Do you believe? Joey G, he believes. Welcome to the channel. David Thiering with a $150 super chat kicking us off here tonight live on YouTube. See, that's what I like to see. That's what I like to see. A nice warm welcome back from David Thiering. There you go. Thank you, sir. Yeah, I knew Monday was going to be a big night too. The Raw coming off the Royal Rumble, and it killed me to miss it. But you guys put a smile on my face, so thank you very much. I appreciate that. Now, before we get into all of the goings on here, there he is. There he is in the chat. David, I salute you, sir. Thank you. Before we get into the happenings on Dynamite tonight, I mentioned Grand Slam, Australia. It's coming up next week. Not this weekend, coming up of February 15th. And they're going to be in Brisbane. And we've talked about the whole odyssey of how this show started, how it ended. Yeah, how it started, how it ended, right? Originally, it was going to be a stadium show. And now they're going to have somewhere in the range of 11 or 12,000 people in a much smaller venue for a show that is not going to be nearly as big as people originally thought it would be, and Tony Khan originally thought it would be, because Tony Khan would not have booked a 50,000 seat stadium for a show if he thought it was just going to be a glorified episode of Collision. I don't believe that. I don't believe that when he conceived of this show all those many months ago when he was looking for venues to book, that it was just to effectively replace a Collision on a Saturday night. But that's what it has turned into. And a lot of people are very upset about this. In particular, people who ran right out last summer and bought tickets thinking that it was going to be at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane. They bought their tickets. They booked airfare and hotels. People were going to be coming in from the US, from all over the world, because they wanted to be part of this show, right? There are some diehard AEW fans out there, and they wanted to be part of the first Australian show, right? Another big stadium show, just like Wembley. And then in November, we found out that the show, for reasons that were never publicly acknowledged, was being downgraded to a much smaller venue. And you don't need to be the Amazing Kreskin to know why that is, because they couldn't sell enough tickets. If they could sell enough tickets, then they would never have moved the show. But they overshot their target, and they said, okay, well, we have to downgrade. And at least they had the common sense to do that, because you don't want to have a stadium show and get 10,000 people in a venue that fits 50. Right? Visibly, audibly, it's not going to look good. It's not going to sound good. It's going to be an embarrassment. So they had to move the show. And I've gotten emails from people, but apparently it exploded on Reddit this week, from people who bought tickets, were unhappy to find out the show was effectively being downgraded, and then were told that they were not going to get refunds if they wanted refunds. Now, I've been asking around. I've been trying to find out, is this true? And apparently it has to do with whatever the ticketing service, it's not Ticketmaster, but whatever the ticketing services down there in Australia that people are using. And I was amazed by that people who wanted refunds asked for refunds in some cases, and it took a while, but then they were notified recently by the ticket vendor that no, refunds are not going to be granted. So long as AEW, I guess, can provide a ticket of equal value, you will not be refunded your money. Now, if that's not the case, then somebody will let me know and we'll find out. But certainly there are people who are being told otherwise. And there was one person who posted a giant thread on Reddit, and it kind of went viral and people were sharing it around. And there were other comments in the thread from other people who had purchased tickets to go to this show who were very upset. Even if they didn't necessarily want a refund or were denied a refund, they were very upset because what they thought was a pay-per-view, what they thought was a 4-hour major spectacular, is now going to be a 2-hour glorified television show. And they're very upset about this. There's a lot of discourse around, was it going to be a pay-per-view? Was it not going to be a pay-per-view? There are people insisting that this was going to be a pay-per-view. I will defend AEW in this one small way. At no point, even in the initial advertising, the initial commercial or trailer for the show back in August that initially ran, at no point could I find any evidence, or do I remember AEW advertising this as a pay-per-view. I defy you to find me evidence of them advertising it specifically as a pay-per-view. You can't, because they never did. So that's number one. You can't say, now if they flat out said it was a pay-per-view, that would be blatant false advertising. They didn't do that. This is what Tony Khan told Scott Fishman of TV Insider this week. And this is also, I think, part of what led to all this fan outrage and discussion around the event. He claims having this be a television event has always been the plan. There's something that the network, this is something that the network wanted. It's something the network brought to us recently as an opportunity to follow NBA All-Star Saturday. We saw it as a huge opportunity. It was a great vote of confidence for our partners at Warner Brothers Discovery. It will be one of the biggest nights of the year on TNT. It's a great opportunity given the lead-in. So Tony Khan is all gung-ho about getting that lead-in because that's NBA All-Star Weekend. They're not even advertising an actual time for the event outside of the fact that originally they advertised 8 p.m. Eastern. And then they had to pretend that never happened because I don't know how the fuck that even got advertised on the show. I mean, seriously, how did that even end up on TV? If they knew that the NBA game, the NBA All-Star game, and all the All-Star festivities were happening that weekend and on that day, I'm not sure why that even would have made the air in the first place. Then we started hearing about how, well, it's going to actually air at 2:30 in the morning Eastern time on a huge tape delay. And it is going to be on a tape delay no matter what. Then we were hearing, and I think they may have advertised that it was going to be at 10:30 Eastern time. They're not even advertising a time. They're simply saying when the NBA All-Star festivities are over, the show will begin. They have not clarified if it will be airing live on Max. I don't get the impression that it will be. I don't see why it wouldn't. But I don't get the impression that it will be. That's my biggest issue with this. And I'm not even somebody who spent money thinking I was going to Suncorp Stadium and now I'm going to, a much smaller building and I'm pissed off. It's the lack of clarity every step of the way. So if you were somebody who bought tickets to this event, yes, they never technically advertise it as a pay-per-view, but there are certain expectations that come with running a huge stadium show. And not just because, WWE runs big stadium shows and they're usually these big PLEs. AEW ran a big stadium show, right? And that was their biggest event of all time, right? All in. When you hear that they're going to be running Australia and they're running a huge stadium show down there, even if it is called Grand Slam, which has traditionally been a television event, you have certain expectations for what that show is going to be, right? How long it's going to be, the quality of matches on the show, the number of matches on the show, the number of stars on the show. And so I can understand people assuming that it was going to be a pay-per-view, even though they never said it was going to be. But think about this. If you, and the ticket prices are ridiculous. So imagine like you jumped at the opportunity to grab tickets, right? At first thinking, oh, they may go quickly, which they didn't. But you want to bring your family. You jump at the opportunity. You buy tickets, thinking that it's going to be some 3 or 4 hour, pay-per-view. And you see now what it's turned into. And you can understand why people would be upset. And the lack of clarity every step of the way. Is it a pay-per-view or is it not a pay-per-view? I don't think it was until November that Tony Khan said it wouldn't be a pay-per-view. But even then he was like, well, it would be awfully difficult to do a pay-per-view given the time zone difference. Like, dude, just come out and say that it's not going to be a pay-per-view. Like, I don't understand why they're so wishy-washy or just not forthcoming when it comes to some of these answers. I suspect it was because they still really did not know what format or what platform this event was going to take place in or take place on. And that alone is a problem. How do you not have all your ducks in a row? You've already announced the event. You've already started selling tickets. Why is there still so much confusion? That's the thing that I don't understand. Why did it take this long to find out that it was going to air on TNT? Why was there one time announced and then it was scrubbed and now it's a completely different time? And why are people apparently not able to get refunds? That may not be an AEW issue. It may be an issue with the vendor, but it reflects very poorly on AEW. So I understand the outrage. Now, people need to understand that AEW never advertised it as a pay-per-view, but they did advertise it as something really, really big. And while there are going to be some great matches on the show, clearly this is not going to be a really, really big event. Hopefully it'll be a good event, but this is not what it was originally billed as, right? Which was going to be this huge show. And that's not what this is going to be. So if you're out hundreds of dollars and can't get a refund and now you're stuck, you got to fly all the way over there and you don't want to go, it sucks. But just the lack of clarity every step of the way is what I really just don't understand. It's almost as if they really planned this very poorly. Yeah, go figure. So while people may be picking on AEW for the wrong reasons because they never did say pay-per-view, it still reflects very poorly on the company, and I think that people have a right to be upset. So anyway, that's the update on Grand Slam, which is coming up again, not this weekend, but it is coming up next weekend. Exactly what time it will air, we don't know. And however big that lead-in is going to be, I'm sure TNT will be very happy that night, but I guarantee you it is highly unlikely to lead to a single new fan being made. So whatever fans they pick up that night, do you honestly think they're going to stick around in the long term? Probably not. So for AEW, what does it really mean, right? It gets them a nice pat on the back from their overlords for one night. But the planning, the logistics, the planning of this event, everything has been a fucking fail on this front. And you can't tell me that when it was first conceived, that Tony Khan didn't envision this, if nothing else, being a major live special, like a streaming special on Max. And this is before the deal was even done to renew with Warner Brothers Discovery. But you can't tell me he didn't have much bigger aspirations for this show than just airing, on TNT at whatever time it's going to air. And when they had to move it to the smaller venue, I think that's when they really just lost interest and the whole thing fell apart. That's what I think. Once they lost their big stadium show, it's like, well, we have to do this now. So, okay, we're going to lose our ass on this show, because how much money do you think it's going to cost them to fly all these people over there to Australia and back, not to mention production, equipment? I'll see how they make money on this show. It's ridiculous. Let's talk about Dynamite tonight. It came on the air with Renee interviewing Jay White, who was outside in the parking lot. She asked him about his relationship with Adam Copeland, and he said that the Death Riders have forced him to rely on people that he ordinarily would not rely on, including Copeland and FTR. And before he could say anything else, he sees the Death Riders. We could tell he sees somebody, we don't know who it is. And the camera turns and we see the Death Riders are walking towards him. And what the Death Riders don't know is that right behind them is Dax, Cash, and Adam Copeland coming up the rear. So all of a sudden, a big brawl breaks out with everybody. Marina Shafir picks up Renee on over her shoulder and walks off with her. We don't know where they went, but I'm like, okay. So all of this ends up spilling into the arena. Everybody is brawling around the ringside area. They're brawling through the crowd. Wheeler Yuta, he walks into they're in the ring now. And Wheeler Yuta, he walks into a Blade Runner. Moxley is about to get one, but Pac gets in the ring and he bails him out. So Claudio and Pac, they help Moxley regain control, and they put the boots to Jay White in the ring. Copeland now gets in the ring, and he attempts to deliver a spear to Moxley. Claudio sees this, and he pushes him out of the way, and he takes the bullet for him. So the Death Riders, they flee into the crowd. Copeland asks for a microphone, and he reiterates the challenge that he laid down on Collision, because on Collision this past weekend, he just came right out and issued a challenge to Jon Moxley and said, you and me, Mox and Cope, AEW World Championship, Revolution. Not even Grand Slam, Revolution, March 9th. So he reiterated his challenge, and he asked Moxley if he still had a set of nuts on him. Moxley comes back through the crowd. He asks for a microphone. And he says, Copeland deserves nothing. You will get nothing. My answer is no. Everybody boos. He goes to leave. Jay White takes the microphone. And Jay White then issues a challenge of his own to a Brisbane Brawl, a no-rules Brisbane Brawl, where it'll be a tag team match, basically him and Copeland taking on Moxley and Claudio. And he got no answer. Obviously, that's going to be the match. And I like that much better than them, which is what I feared they might do, a singles match for the AEW World title between Jay White and Jon Moxley, which would have been very dumb and completely unnecessary, because as soon as Copeland issued the challenge for Revolution, that negated any need to have Jon Moxley defend his championship on this show next weekend. Because nobody would expect that he's going to lose the title anyway. But it just wouldn't make any sense when Copeland just issued the challenge for Revolution. So you may as well just do a tag team match. Do a tag team match, have some smoke and mirrors, no rules, right? They can use all the weapons and plunder and garbage they want, and they could have a giant brawl. And so that's exactly what they're going to do. They went with the hot start to the show this week, and they got the Death Rider stuff out of the way early, which is one of the things I liked about the show, because the Death Rider stuff still sucks. It just does. It fucking sucks. So the less of it that we see, the better. And I like that they just got it out of the way, right there at the top of the show. I also love, by the way, how the announcers just glossed over the fact that Renee was seemingly kidnapped by Marina Shafir. No mention of it. It was just, okay, the challenge to a match has been issued, and on with the show we went. But we would see Renee back very soon. So they showed footage of, in the back on Collision on Saturday, Buddy Matthews talking to Kazuchika Okada, the international champion. Or the Continental, I'm sorry, the Continental, it's all the same shit. The Continental champion, challenging him to a match. Okada laughed off the challenge and said, "You don't deserve it." Matthews called him a bitch, and evidently that's all it took. He walked off, and we found out after they showed us that segment that the match is now official. And so they found a way to get Buddy Matthews on the Australia show, and he's going to be going one-on-one with Okada for the Continental title, which will be a great match. I don't expect a title change, obviously, but that is going to be a great match. Hey, Dev to Dust, thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Take a sip of my water. Gotta stay hydrated here. Thank you, my friend. Hey, George. Is George with us too? I was told, take it easy for a while with the voice. So the last thing I want to do is lose it again. So I'm doing my best. I'm actually trying to listen and follow instructions. We'll see how long that lasts. We had Will Ospreay going one-on-one with a mystery member of the Don Callis family. And all week, people were wondering, okay, who's the mystery guy going to be? Is it going to be a new member of the Callis family? Is it going to be an existing member that people aren't thinking about? Anytime you do a mystery man angle, right, you want to have a good payoff for it. And I said, because I thought this was what was going to happen, that it would end up being Trent Beretta. Because the last time we saw Trent Beretta, he was part of the Callis family, right? And then he got hurt. And we haven't seen him ever since. I forgot if it was like another neck issue. I believe it was. But I just said, watch, it'll end up being fucking Trent Beretta. Like, I hope not. I think Trent Beretta as the payoff to a mystery man angle would be fucking terrible. But watch it be Trent Beretta. Don Callis walks out on stage. And he says he's going to introduce a man that used to be like a brother to Ospreay. One half of the former Aussie Open. And he brings out Mark Davis. I was sitting here and I said I didn't think that Toni could find a more anticlimactic payoff to this than Trent Beretta. He did find a way, though. Impressively, he did find a way. And my other thought, after I was thinking that, my other thought was, as I'm sure it was for many of you, why would Mark Davis come out on behalf of the Callis family to wrestle Will Ospreay? Like, from the moment he came back, he was obviously upset with Don Callis, and he was upset with his former partner, Kyle Fletcher. So why here is he agreeing to wrestle Will Ospreay on behalf of the Callis family? And to their credit, they took the time to try being the keyword. They took the time to try to explain to us why that was. They had Don Callis on commentary. This is what he said. He said that he is the one who signed Aussie Open, right, to AEW contracts 2 years ago. Mark Davis happened to be in the hospital at the time. I feel like he's spent more time in the hospital since he signed with this company than he has actually in the ring. But he said Davis was in the hospital at the time, and he gave Kyle Fletcher power of attorney for both of them to sign their contract. So Callis owns Mark Davis, and his first job here is to injure Will Ospreay. So they keep this going here, right? Because they really want to, like, we want to show the fans that we're like taking the time to explain this to them, right? Like we're all idiots. And Excalibur says, so basically, Davis is doing this under duress, is what you're saying. And Callis says that, well, he's been told what to do. So we keep it going. Taz now pipes up. And Taz said, yeah, but Davis was mighty angry with you guys when, he first came back from injury. And then Callis put it very bluntly. He said he either sits home or he comes to work under the Don Callis banner. Now, I appreciate their attempt to explain this and the realization that they came to, which is that nobody is going to understand any of this if we don't explain it to them, because this doesn't make a lick of fucking sense, which it doesn't. So we're going to take the time to at least try to fill in the gaps and explain why Mark Davis is doing this match here tonight. Here's the problem with this. What it doesn't do is explain why Mark Davis, from the moment he came back in November, okay, where are we now? What are we? February. From the moment he came back in November, he has done nothing, virtually nothing, but wrestle the Callis family. That's all he's been doing. Most of the time, he was teaming with Powerhouse Hobbs, but he has been working against the Callis family for over 2 months now. So if Don Callis owned him and had this over him and could control him and have him do his bidding, why did it take 2 months or almost 3 months to turn around and say, you know what? Instead of fighting us, you're going to work for us. You're going to wrestle for me on my behalf and do my dirty work for me. Did Callis just forget that he had power of attorney and he had signed the contract and he was bound to do, what he was legally bound to do? I don't know. Maybe he was being a nice guy. Then again, it's Don Callis, right? Don Callis is not a nice guy. It doesn't make sense. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. It's all he's been doing is fighting the Callis family for months. But now it's like, well, you have to work for me. That's to say nothing of the fact that when he got in the ring here, Davis did not look at all. He did not have a look on his face like he was reluctant in any way to get into the ring and fight his friend. He just got in the ring and started working Will Ospreay. It's not like he was out there with his facial expressions like, oh, bro, I don't want to do this, man. I can't, I got no choice. Like, nope. Just goes in there and does what he's told. Okay. So what's the Bart Simpson meme with the cake, right? You tried, and then you throw the fucking thing in the garbage, which is where this should go, because this doesn't make any sense. So for the finish here, Davis ripped off the middle turnbuckle. He tried to drive Ospreay into it. Rick Knox sees this and actually does his job for a change. And he steps in between them. Now that distraction allows Ospreay to hit a charging hidden blade from one end of the ring to the other, because Davis, as he turned around, he walked right into it. And he got wiped out with the hidden blade, and Ospreay pinned him. After the match, Ospreay takes the microphone, and he says it's like a party here in Atlanta. And I got to give a shout out here to the fans in Atlanta tonight. They were hot for most of the stuff on this show. This was a very good crowd tonight. He goes, and since Callis is a party pooper, he has a new best friend backstage who he's teaming up with at Grand Slam. And that brought out Kenny Omega. He came out in street clothes. He came to the ring. Omega said, man to man, Mark Davis, he has no clue what Don Callis has over him. Well, you should have been listening to commentary. He has no clue what Don Callis has over him. It may be very scary, but help is there. And there are people that he can trust. Omega said that he's going to wrestle in 10 days, but he got the itch to come out here tonight and say hi to the fans. So Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita, they charged out from the back. Callis held them back. And Omega said that we can do this right here and now. But if not, hop on a jet, start training for Australia. This match next week is going to show what the future is with Omega and Ospreay. And then he hits his good night and goodbye, or goodbye and good night line. And they shot off this like ridiculous amount of pyro. Like it surprised Omega even. Like it was ridiculous. And that was the end of the segment. This did not do much to add really anything to what they've already done to set the match up for Grand Slam. But the fans in the arena were happy. At least they got an Omega appearance, because he could have just been completely off the show. But they were, at least happy they got to see Kenny Omega. Yes, Uffman, at least you tried. They didn't do a very good job, but at least they tried. So up next, we had the brand new AEW World Tag Team Champions. We had the Hurt Syndicate. Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, they made their way to the ring. MVP said that this was an official announcement, and he asked the crowd to stand for the standard of excellence. And he said that he's going to keep this short because they have a plane to catch for New Orleans for the Super Bowl. He called Private Party talented. Well, it's nice of them to put them over now after they made them look like geeks and destroyed them for a couple of weeks there. Remember when they came out when Private Party was having their little party on stage? Right? They're all going to drink together. Made them look like just a couple of nobodies. Then they went in there and they actually destroyed them. But now they can stand here and go, well, Private Party, they're really talented. They were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. He addressed the rest of the roster, anybody who was holding a championship, and told them to get ready. He said when they decide they want more gold, they're going to go after their next victims, and they're going to hurt them. So in the meantime, if anybody wanted to challenge them, they were open for business. The lights went out, and we hear the music, and then the lights come back on, and on stage are the Guns, Austin and Colton Gunn, who we have not seen in at least a few months. I thought I had heard something about Colton maybe being hurt. I'm not sure. I was a little unsure about that injury update, so I don't know where they've been, but they've been gone for a few months, and now they're back. So Austin said, look, we mean no disrespect. We too are businessmen. We want to talk business. So MVP invites them in the ring. Austin and Colton, they introduced themselves as former AEW Tag Team Champions. And they said that they've been waiting 2 years for their rematch. Now they're back. Colton congratulates them on hurting people and doing their job, but that's what you're supposed to do. MVP appreciates the courage and he respects their father, which is the only reason that his men have not choked them out. So he says next week it's going to be the Hurt Syndicate against a couple of ass boys. and MVP leaves, and the Hurt Syndicate, they all leave. Austin then, he proudly says, "You're damn right we are." And they did their whole, if you're not down with that, we got 2 words for you. And everybody says guns up. Which is very good, because I'm still of the mindset, every time I hear that, I just assume the people are going to chant "suck it," but they have the people chanting guns up. So good on them. This crowd gave the Guns a nice reaction. Getting them back can only help the tag team division at a time when the tag team division can use all the help it can get. And AEW is not the only place that could use some real help in their tag team division, but it could not come at a better time. I'm looking forward. You know what match I'm looking forward to, and I hope we get the match at some point? Lashley and Benjamin against Brody King and Buddy Matthews. That's the match I want to see. In fact, I could see that eventually being the title change, the next title change, whoever's going to get those belts next. I could see it being them. So Renee was backstage outside of Mercedes Moné's locker room. So I guess Marina Shafir finally put her down. She was not kidnapped. If she was returned. And no mention was made about, where she was taken, or maybe Marina just wanted to get her out of harm's way. Picked her up, took her off camera, sat her back down. Maybe that's what happened. But Renee is standing there outside Mercedes' locker room, and all of a sudden, she is joined by Puppet Mercedes. Now, if you don't know what Puppet Mercedes is, basically Harley Cameron, who is fantastic. Harley Cameron has many talents. She can wrestle, she can sing, she can play guitar, and she's a ventriloquist. She's done this a few times now on TV. Now she has a puppet that is supposed to look like Mercedes Moné, and she does the voice. So we don't see Harley yet, but we see the puppet pop up on camera right next to Renee. And Puppet Mercedes says that Harley Cameron is going to be live in concert on Collision this Saturday. So then Harley slides into the camera shot so we could see her now. And she says, "Oh, what a great idea." And she knew Mercedes was no dummy. So the real Mercedes walks in and asks if Harley is stupid or just dumb, right? She's, mockingly congratulating Harley for winning her first ever wrestling match, which she did on Collision this week. Harley Cameron had never won a single match in AEW in all the time that she's been there. And she finally got a win. I believe it was over Taya Valkyrie on Saturday. So again, if you think, they have this Vendetta group, which is really just Taya and Deonna Purrazzo. If you want to know what they think of Vendetta, they just lost to somebody who had never won a match before. So that pretty much tells you all you need to know. So Mercedes is mockingly congratulating her for her big win. And Mercedes says that she remembers her first win and winning her first title. She was 23 years old. And she remembers what it was like to win this title. And she's pointing at all that she's got like 4 belts, right? And this title and the TBS title. And she calls herself the greatest TBS champion of all time. Says Cameron is nothing but a loser. She rips the puppet off her hand. And Mercedes leaves and goes into her locker room. Harley is trying to flip her off. And Renee is kind of holding her hand, trying to stop her from doing so. She was able to slip that finger out there, though. But Harley Cameron is great. And I actually would not mind a long-term storyline. So, I mean, we're talking months that would eventually lead to her getting a win over Mercedes, and maybe winning her first championship that way. The problem is that's so far down the road, and Mercedes has already had this title for almost a year. I don't want to see her hold on to the TBS title for another 9 months. Like, you can't do that. There's so much talent in that women's division right now. And they have 2 titles. They have the world title and they have the TBS title. But you have so many women and so few opportunities any given week, where the women usually will get 1 match on Dynamite. It's usually not that long. you can't wait that long to first now build up Harley Cameron. She only just won her first match. You can't just rush into a story like that where she's the one who beats Mercedes, and wins the title. That would be a great payoff for down the road. I just don't think that there's enough time to wait to get to that moment and neglect everybody else who should be getting these opportunities right now in that division. But I would like to see them craft, and maybe they're in the middle of doing that now, some kind of long-term story like that for Harley, because she's great. She's just a very entertaining personality. She's got this energy about her that just makes you smile, or laugh, right? She can be funny. But I just think she's great. And hopefully these segments are great. That's great that they're getting her TV time, but hopefully there's something more, something a little bit deeper, that they can do with her. But that's a longer term play, I think. Renee was in the back, and she was with Hangman Adam Page, asking why he was looking for Swerve Strickland last week. Because remember, he was in the back, and Renee was standing there, and Hangman just busted into Swerve's locker room. He was looking for him. She's like, "What are you looking for?" He's like, "Oh, don't worry about it." Why the fuck would he be looking for Swerve, right? So she asked him about this, and Paige said that it was a moment of weakness, and he's not going to address it again, nor should you ask me about it. So she asked about the look of regret on his face when Christopher Daniels informed him that his in-ring career was over as a result of what happened in their Texas death match. And Page denied having any regret, and he said that's what happens when you take on Hangman in a Texas death match. So they show Max Caster is sitting. He's just off camera, just sitting there waiting his turn for his promo. And he's wearing his Bret Hart tights, like Bret Hart colored tights. But he's sitting there and he's like, excuse me, can we wrap this up? I've been waiting forever for my promo time here. And of course, Hangman's like, because he gets that look in his eyes. And he asks Caster, do we have a problem? And Caster tells Paige, look, I respect you. And I'm too busy with my open challenges to fight. But man, it would be a real shame if Hangman put someone like Anthony Bowens or, Billy Gunn in the hospital. So Paige didn't bite on what he was trying to do. And he said, well, they weren't there, but Caster was. And he would love to put someone in the hospital tonight. And Caster said that I'm good, and he's going to go head out to his rental car. And Hangman said that he would follow him out there, basically to kick his ass. So I was sports entertained by this segment and the interplay between these two men. And this would carry over into a segment that took place later in the show, which we'll get to. Hey, James, thank you. I appreciate that. James Crawford in the chat. And you know what it is? I've had like this, it's like this shortness of breath. When you get like chest congestion, you get that feeling. And I haven't been able to shake that. And like a horrible cough. So I've been able to kind of contain it so far, like in the last 3 or 4 hours, but it's still there. It's very annoying. My guess is it'll probably still be there for a while. It's one of those things that kind of lingers, But yeah, it's very annoying. We had Kyle Fletcher and Konosuke Takeshita against the Hounds of Hell, as they are now being called, Brody King and Buddy Matthews. This was a great match. And the fight spilled outside with Brody King sitting both members of the Callis family on chairs up against the barricade. And he would back up and charge at them and do a running cross body block, right? He did that once. Fans loved it. And they chanted one more time. So he obliged. And he stacked them up again, kind of up against each other against the barricade. and he hit it for a second time. Takeshita and Fletcher, they gained the advantage during the commercial break. They isolated Brody King, who fired off some very heavy shots. I don't think there are any shots that Brody King would fire off that would not be heavy. That's like asking Sheamus to throw a light punch. I don't think he's capable of doing it. And he can't help it. It's just how he is, you know? He goes out there, he lays his shit in. That's what people do. Brody King is a giant man. I just can't imagine him not laying his shit in. So he almost made the hot tag, but Takeshita wiped Matthews out with a big boot. Takeshita also hit a stalling gut-wrench German suplex to the big man, which was impressive, but he no-sold it, tried a gonzo bomb. Takeshita slid out, and both men collided with a double lariat, only to pop right back up, and then they collapsed simultaneously. So later on, Matthews missed a curb stomp. Fletcher hit the half and half. Ran into a corner knee strike. Matthews went to end it off the top rope, but the sound of the coin drop played. And it was Okada's music. No Okada, but they played his music, and that distraction almost led to Fletcher attempting a brainbuster, but Matthews slipped out. King made the tag. They hit the double cannonball dropkick combo, only for Takeshita to fly in and break the count with a senton. Takeshita was taken to the apron. King locked in the sleeper hold. Takeshita, though, raked the eyes, and that allowed Fletcher to hit the draping DDT, only for a 2 count. Now, Bryce Remsburg, he smacked the mat for 3, but it did look like he was able to technically kick out before the 3 count, even though he hit 3. Matthews got sent flying into the barricade. Fletcher wanted the brainbuster on Brody King. Takeshita, though, saved his partner and hit a series of strikes until the assisted brainbuster connected and Fletcher pinned Brody King. This was a hell of a match, and I hate King and Matthews losing here, but, you know, unless you did some kind of bullshit finish, which doesn't accomplish anything, somebody's got to go over and somebody's going to get pinned. And in this case, it was the Hounds of Hell who got pinned, because they were not going to pin the 2 guys that are being primed for Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay next weekend at Grand Slam. Because that would have been ridiculous for them to lose going into that match. Plus, it took everything they could. It took everything but the kitchen sink to throw at Brody King to beat this man. And eventually they were finally able to do so. So it's not like they didn't try to keep him strong, even in defeat. And you got to pin him. Of the 2, you got to pin him. You know, you're not going to pin Buddy Matthews because he's facing Okada next weekend. You know, he's challenging for the title, so that really wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. Samoa Joe and Hook were in the back. And Samoa Joe did not look in a very happy... I mean, when is Samoa Joe in a happy mood? Not very often. But he was backstage with Hook. And Hook is actually trying to talk some sense into this guy and giving Joe some of his own advice. He goes, you remember the advice that you gave me? You're not sensible when you're angry. And Joe warned him, don't be laying my own advice on me. I think this community would be a better place here if more people took their own advice sometimes. But they rushed the patriarchy's locker room anyway, because that's what Joe wanted. Joe got beaten up with a chair, and he was not very happy. He wanted revenge, and so they ended up busting in anyway. But what they found was Nick Wayne and Kip Sabian. They did not find Christian Cage. So they find these 2 guys, and they were about to leave, and Joe stopped and said, well, why don't we send a message instead? And the message was basically them kicking the shit out of them. So they're laying a beatdown on these 2 guys, and the camera pans over and shows Christian and Mother Wayne at the doorway, like peeking in as they see what's going on, right? You can hear the fans, in the arena, they start laughing. And they're obviously reluctant to enter, so they don't. Joe and Hook, they finish their beating, and they leave. Only then did Christian walk into the room, and he acted like he had just arrived, like he had no idea what happened too. It's like he kind of looks, make sure they're gone. He waits. And then he goes in there and he goes, what happened here? What the hell happened here? I thought that was amusing. MJF came to the ring up next, and he gets in, and right away, he immediately talks about Jeff Jarrett. Starts in on geriatric Jeff, who couldn't stay out of the way of the handsome star like MJF, which is why he had to teach him a lesson. He said the E in AEW stands for elite, not elderly. And he says, now that Carney Schmuck is out of the way, and I can get closer to regaining my triple B, because ain't no one on the level of, and then he couldn't even finish his catchphrase before Max Caster runs into the ring. And Caster is just, you could tell like he's been running away from somebody. Running away from Hangman Page, trying to get away. MJF, though, is not happy about this. He starts to berate this man. And Caster is trying to explain to him that, Hangman Page, I'm trying to get away from him. So then we hear Hangman's music. And Hangman comes down to the ring. Caster gets the hell out of there. Page hits the ring, and we get a brief stare down between Hangman Page and MJF. Caster is, again, he hightailed it, and Page heads into the crowd to go find him. So MJF is once again all by himself in the ring. And he said before he was interrupted by a talentless hack, ain't no one on the level of, and again, he gets cut off. This time by Dustin Rhodes' music. And Dustin walks down to the ring. And Dustin's got all kinds of belts now. I think he still has the Ring of Honor 6-man titles, right? And the tag team titles. So he's got all kinds of championships that I don't know that anybody really cares about, but good for him. So he gets in the ring, and he said, all MJF knows how to do is degrade people, even those no longer with us, like his friend Owen Hart. And he got very hot about that, and he didn't want him mentioning Owen's name ever again. And he told him, stop insulting people's wives and stop bringing up people's past with drugs and alcohol. Because Dustin himself is a recovering alcoholic. Says he's been clean and sober for 16 years. He said he's been to hell and back. He's seen the devil. And Max, you're not the devil. Because there's a reason why he's still here at 55 years old, hanging with everybody on the roster. Says it's because he's a survivor. He's the last of his kind, and he wants MJF to know that when he is gone, the mold will be broken forever. He is better than MJF, and his punk bitch ass knows it. So MJF responds. And he says, all his years as a worthless addict must have turned his brain to Swiss cheese. That is, if he believes any of what he just said. He then tells Dustin that he spent the first 37 years of his life crawling out of the shadow of his father, only to end up back in the shadow of his little baby brother. And before he could even get the word brother out, before he could even, I blame that fucking beer, by the way, for me getting sick. That's what I'm blaming. That's why I got sick. I've been walking around for a week with the fucking Black Plague. You know why? Because I drank that Real American Beer bullshit. This is my PSA to tell you to stay the fuck away from that beer. Don't end up like me. Sorry, I said brother. I got set off here. But as soon as he said the word brother, Dustin decked him, and security rushed the ring to separate them. Rhodes broke through, and he got in a few more shots, and MJF retreated. So then MJF said, I'm leaving. And he ends up breaking through security. He hits the ring again, and he delivers a low blow to Dustin. Just realized that's the second time they did that low blow angle or some form of a low blow angle on the same show. So as he's leaving, he gets to the stage and Christopher Daniels comes out and he's telling him, get to the back. And MJF was about to throw a punch and then he realized it was Daniels and he chuckled and he goes, boy, Hangman really did a number on you. And he walks off. He called him an old man and he walked off. I still cannot sit here and tell you that I am all that excited to see MJF working the senior circuit, okay, in AEW, because I'm not. But Dustin Rhodes in that one promo had more believability, fire, passion in his voice. That's the way Dustin cuts promos. He yells, he screams, but he gets his point across, and he's got a fire and a passion that not everybody has, and not everybody, or maybe not everybody, is good at conveying on TV. So they got me interested enough to see a quick one-off, which they're going to do next week. They're going to blow it off next week on Dynamite. It's going to be one and done, I'm sure. And it's going to be Dustin Rhodes against MJF. And so as a television match 1 week, instead of dragging this out for weeks and weeks and weeks, that's fine. Because again, I thought this was a good promo. But he did more in that one promo than anything that Jeff Jarrett and MJF have done in their promos. Again, a few weeks ago, the stuff at Hammerstein where they're going off on each other's wives and girlfriends, and it's like just the lowest hanging fruit. And I know MJF tends to do that. He goes for low hanging fruit all the time. And sometimes it gets old, but that's just part of the character, I guess. But that segment where, Jarrett was going after his old lady, and I remember watching that that night. I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, what is this? Like, this is stupid. But this promo it resonated more than that one did. So the match I want to see, though, is MJF against Hangman Page. And so the teases for that match continue. It's just like drip, 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 week, 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 week. Each time we see, a different interaction, brief as it may be, but it is leading to something. And I just wish we would get there a little bit faster. A little bit quicker. Then we got to one of my favorite segments on the entire show here. Timeless Toni Storm. Sid says, Dustin Rhodes is super intimidating even when he is a face. Well, it could also be because he literally has half of his face painted, which is a little intimidating. But again, he speaks with authority, if that makes sense. He speaks with authority in a way that not everybody does. All right, because he's the veteran guy, and he's been around forever. He's been through hell, like he said in his promo, right? He's been through hell and back. He's the grizzled old veteran, but it's just his style, his way of speaking in these promos. I think tends to be very effective. So it worked in this instance, but I'm glad they're just kind of going into it. All of this is only being done to feed into the eventual Jeff Jarrett match anyway. So, this is part of building to that other match. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking it's got to be Revolution, right? As opposed to Grand Slam, where they're going to do MJF and Jeff Jarrett. I would think that that's going to be the Revolution match. Whatever they're going to do with MJF and Hangman seems more like either a dynasty match or a double or nothing match, because they're taking their time with that. So that's what I'm not even sure MJF is on the Australia show next weekend. So I'm kind of hoping we get MJF and Jarrett done at Revolution, let MJF beat him, and then let's move on to the next. But we had Timeless Toni Storm taking on Queen Aminata. The AEW Women's World Champion Mariah she joined on commentary before the match. And she said that it was ironic that the testosterone level rose when she arrived. I'm sure that's not the only thing that rose at that announce desk. So before Toni came out, Justin Roberts had an announcement to make. And he said, playing the role of Mariah May is timeless Toni Storm. And they played Mariah May's entrance video. They played Mariah May's entrance music. And she came out, and even the same hairstyle, dressed just like Mariah May. The long blonde hair, the same gear, the same mannerisms and body language. This was perfect. And I don't know why, but as I'm watching this, I also all of a sudden had a hankering for some cake. And it's like it's not even my birthday. I don't know why. It just kind of overcame me here. You know, I always have cake on my birthday. So, you know, my birthday's in fucking October. It's February, but all of a sudden I really wanted some cake. So I'll have to get some cake tomorrow. Sweet Jesus. So Mariah did not look amused by any of this. Serena Deeb was shown briefly watching on a monitor or screen, I guess, right? It's on a little tiny monitor. It had like a little flat panel screen. She's shown in the back watching this on screen, as I'm sure Britt Baker was not shown watching from home shouting, "Nobody cares" at her TV. So Storm mounted a comeback. Oh, I should take a drink here before we get into this. I want to make sure I describe this in the best way possible. So she mounts a comeback. And Mariah grabs her chest, the real Mariah, who's sitting at ringside on commentary, grabs her chest, and she's asking Tony Schiavone what two things, you know, Toni Storm has. I'm dying over here. I'm trying not to laugh at something I wrote that I'm not going to read. Juice Robinson, yes, Gerardo says Juice Robinson is a lucky man. Oh, Juice Robinson has always been a lucky man, though. I mean, they've been together for a while. I don't know what you mean. Gerardo, I don't know what you mean. Now, Mariah's sitting there at ringside, and she grabs her chest, and she asks Tony Schiavone what two things Storm is missing to truly be Mariah May. And Tony Schiavone wisely just doesn't answer the question. So Storm went for Mayday. Aminata swept the legs for a jackknife pin, only a near fall. Both women got to their feet, traded stiff strikes until Aminata hit a snap German and a sliding shin to the face. Storm's hair extensions were just falling out everywhere. Little blonde strands of hair all over the ring. Aminata wanted an air raid crash. Toni Storm escaped with a snap DDT, a charging knee, sweet cheek music, which I have to say, every week we watch SmackDown, or really any WWE show, because the Samoans are all over all the shows. And they all use the same running hip attack, right? Jimmy Uso does it. I think both Usos do it. Everybody, I feel like everybody except Roman Reigns basically hits the running hip attack in that family, but we see it every week. And yeah, it's devastating when they come charging into the core. It looks devastating. But you have not seen devastation until you have seen Toni Storm hitting the sweet cheek music. I mean, I don't know how these women are not whiplashed and concussed every single time, because it looks devastating. It really does. But that led to Mayday and a win for, well, I was going to say Toni Storm, but I guess a win for Mariah May, technically, right, here on Dynamite. So Renee gets in the ring after the match is over, and she congratulates Toni Storm on her win. And Storm said, "Call me Mariah May." Right? She's doing her timeless Toni Storm voice. And she says, "Call me Mariah May, the woman from hell." And she's mocking her now. The woman from hell. There's not a woman alive who can touch me. So the real Mariah is she's fed up with this. And she leaves commentary. She gets up on the apron. And Storm wanted a hug. Instead, May grabbed the AEW Women's World title and she bailed. And that left Toni to pose like Mariah in the ring. I love this. I mean, the match itself was good, but I'm talking more about the angle. Like, this is one of the best, still one of the best angles, even after all this time, that AEW is doing anywhere on any of their television shows. And, you know, Toni Storm found, because I'm sure she's intimately involved in a lot of aspects of her character and her creative. And she found a way to add some new life and breathe some new life into a character that really felt like, okay, you know what? You've done all you can do. And, you know, it's time to reinvent yourself again and move on to the next. And she found a new way and a fun way to put a new spin on this character. And now we're, you know, heading into this rematch next weekend in Australia. She'll be obviously the hometown favorite. But I just thought she nailed the Mariah impression. Just like Mariah nailed the Toni Storm impression. Remember when she first came out that first time last year, I guess early last year, whenever it was, and she was dressed as punk rocker Toni Storm. And I had to do a double take at first because I thought it was the real Toni Storm. So they've both done very good jobs at, you know, emulating and cosplaying as the other. But I said it before, I would not at all be upset if Toni Storm wanted to come out every single week on this show dressed up as Mariah May. In fact, I would encourage it. In fact, I might even start a change.org petition to try to make it happen. This was great. We go backstage to Dustin Rhodes, who is still smarting after the attack earlier by MJF. Boots says Roman doesn't have the ass for it. Are you saying he has a flat ass? Why are you looking at his ass? It's a little sus. It's true, though, right? I mean, I feel like he's the only member of that whole bloodline that just doesn't do the running hip attack. Solo does it. Jacob does it. Usos do it. Sami Zayn's an honorary Us. I don't think okay, maybe Sammy then. Sammy also has never done the running hip attack, but I think they pretty much all do it. That and the Samoan drop. It's like, I feel like if you're part of that bloodline, it's like kind of written into your DNA where you have to do these certain moves, you know, or you're not one of them. But Boots says that Roman doesn't have the ass for it. So yeah, Rikishi did it. Yeah, he did it for The Rock. So backstage, Dustin Rhodes says for 37 years, people have tried to put him in the ground, and he and himself too. You know, when he was at his darkest and at his lowest, he was doing a lot of damage to himself. He said he's the last of his kind, around for a reason. Next Tuesday night, in his backyard in Austin, Texas, he's going to beat MJF's ass. And I was very confused by this because this was the first mention that I had heard that Dynamite was on a Tuesday next week. And then I looked it up. They're taping Dynamite on Tuesday. So they're taping it Tuesday. It'll be airing, not live, clearly, on Wednesday next week. And it was all very confusing. And I'm just like, I'm not sure. I'm sure they didn't tell him to say Tuesday. I just can't imagine why they would have told him, hey, you know, mention Dynamite next Tuesday. You're going to kick his ass. I'm going to assume it was just a brain fart, you know, by Dustin, which, hey, he admitted in his promo earlier, right? He's 55 years old. He's taken a few chair shots to the head. So he had a brain fart. That's the only thing I can imagine, because why would you say Tuesday if the show is not airing until Wednesday? But yeah, so, but at the very end of the show, when Excalibur was running down some of the matches for next week, including this one, they made it very clear, like over and over, Wednesday. So I'm assuming that's what happened here. We had a video package that aired showing the bad blood between Big Bill and Powerhouse Hobbs, including the brawl they had a few weeks ago on Collision at Daly's place, We also saw Bandito's return from his most recent injury, the concussion, to help the Outrunners from a learning tree attack on Collision. So this led into a live Chris Jericho New York Minute. These are usually done pre-taped or just in the back. So this time they were out live in front of the crowd, right on the ramp. Jericho said they're coming from Georgia, the big ALT, which Brian Keith said stands for Appreciate Learning Tree. No. So Jericho said that he doesn't know how Bandito is the most wanted man, as no one wants him here. Then he held up an Old West-style flyer showing that there's a $100,000 bounty on Bandito's head. So since he's got himself a bounty hunter already as part of his crew, he'll double the money so Brian Keith can cash in and do to Bandito what Big Bill did already to Powerhouse Hobbs. And right as Big Bill went to speak, Hobbs' music hits. Outwalk very slowly through the tunnel. Out walks Powerhouse Hobbs. He's got the big brace on his surgically repaired leg. And the brawl is on. And it's a 3-on-1 attack. Hobbs ends up getting an assist from the Outrunners, who sprint out from the back. And we got a whole Pier 6 brawl until security run out to separate everybody. Bill and Hobbs, though, they each have their hands on a security guard outside the ring. So you got to picture this now. They're outside the ring. Hobbs is on the opposite side, and he's got one security guard goozled. Bill is on the other side. He's got a security guard also by the throat. And they're looking at each other like it's a competition now. And Bill picks up his security guard and chokeslams him hard on the floor outside. And so you can imagine that Powerhouse Hobbs then does something very similar to his security guard. Anything you can do, I can do better. They end up getting in the ring. They brawl briefly. They spill back outside the ring. Hobbs tackles Bill over the announce desk where he tries to. It was a little rough, but eventually they tumbled over the announce desk, which did not break because it's made of solid oak, and they fell on the floor. And even the cameraman took a bump because when they got up, I guess they bumped into him. He fell down and the camera was laying on its side. And that's how the segment ended before they cut to commercial. So, you know, as far as what's to like in this segment, forget Jericho. I'm over it. I'm done. Again, the less of him we get with this gimmick, the better. But we had Hobbs and we had Bill. Obviously, whatever they were going to do on the show last week, they just did it this week. This is probably exactly the segment we would have gotten last week. And it's good that we have Hobbs on the show. And it's good that we have Hobbs working with Bill, because I think these are both guys, two guys in this company on this roster who should be on the ascent. And with Bill, I think he'll break out as a babyface on his own once he breaks away from Jericho. For Hobbs, you know, you got to take great care with him because he already lost in his bid to become world champion. He lost to Jon Moxley. There's a gazillion fucking titles he could challenge for in this company. It doesn't have to be the world title. You know, you got the TNT, you got the International, you got the Continental. But just getting him consistent appearances and consistent reps on TV, showing him like they did tonight at like a beast, you know, in a dominant fashion in some way. And I think these two, so far in their brawls and their interactions, they bring out the best in each other. You know, two big men who just go out there and throw down. What's not to like? You got two big guys out there killing people, killing security guards, and then trying to kill each other. Sounds good to me. At least the focus was on them. Primarily, the focus was on them. So when it was the two of them, I enjoyed this. And that led into our main event of the evening. Jake, I just saw your super chat, Jake. 4 dem cakes. Now, remember what Junkyard Dog said. Remember his theme song? Grab them cakes. Don't do that, though. That'll get you arrested. But for dem cakes, says Jake Finn. Yes, indeed. The main event was Swerve Strickland, one-on-one with King Ricochet. Strickland came out wearing Prince Nana's embassy robe that he wears for, I think, all of his big matches, really. But he got blasted in the back with a chair shot by Ricochet. And it was great because we didn't even really see Ricochet until the very last second come up from behind. So he hit him in the back during his entrance with a chair. Even more chair shots then are delivered before Strickland gets tossed into the ring. Swerve slaps Ricochet in the face. He demands the match get started, so the bell sounds. And Ricochet charges with a knee, hits Vertigo, like right away. He hits Vertigo, and he covers him, and he kicks out. So he was trying to end the match early here. Ricochet stayed in control. Strickland tried a leapfrog, but he got drop kicked out of midair. This looked great. Like, he drop kicked this fucking guy out of midair, but just the way that he did it, it looks so good. And Swerve rolled to the floor. Ricochet followed, hit a very low tope through the ropes. They fought up on top of one of the LED barricades, and Ricochet wanted to snap Hurricane Rana. Strickland held on, though, and he powerbombed him onto the top part of the barricade, which, spine first, padding or no padding, that can't feel good. And Swerve was in control as we headed into the final commercial break. When things came back, Ricochet kicked out Strickland's legs in the corner and hit a lung blower for a near fall. Both men traded power bombs until Strickland was able to hit his floating power bomb into the power slam for a 2 count. Ricochet grabbed the referee and he tried a mule kick, but Strickland blocked it, hit a release German into a rolling flatliner. Then came the house call kick. This is a great combo here by Swerve. Strickland then hit the Swerve stomp, but Ricochet was able to kick out after 2. So there was a spot where Ricochet, he botched a hop over Hurricane Rana, where he leaps from the ring over the top rope, and he was trying for the Rana, and it just got all mucked up. But he recovered very quickly. You got to think on your feet, and don't give the people a chance to boo and say you fucked up, even though some of them did. So he immediately turned it into a released German suplex to Swerve on the apron. Ricochet threw him back inside, and then he landed a springboard 450 splash for a near fall. See, it's the best way to smother those chants. If you fuck up and you're worried about, like, oh shit, like, and here come the chants, right? You just overwhelm them with big moves. Like, you just keep going and you just hit some big move and then follow it up with another big move, and they'll forget. So that's basically what he did here. And Ricochet headed up top for a shooting star press, which he hit across Swerve's back. Then he tried for the spirit gun. Strickland hit a house call kick, though, in midair and tried another Swerve stomp, but Ricochet got his arms up in front of his face. So he basically went like this, right? He did his best CM Punk, and he went like this. He was trying to protect his face, but in doing so, he caught him low. And the referee sees this, and he doesn't call, Paul Turner does not call for a disqualification because Ricochet sells it as if it was unintentional. Only when he looks up and realizes what happened and that Swerve is in great pain does he crack a smile. And so I guess the referee was willing to overlook it because he felt it was unintentional, but still it was a fucking low blow. But he let it go. Still should have been a DQ. Swerve is on his knees. Swerve has his back turned, and he's on his knees, and he is in agonizing pain. He's holding his balls. Ricochet from the corner charges out, hits the spirit gun right to the back of the head, and he covers and he pins Swerve Strickland. He pins a former AEW world champion. And that is back-to-back big losses now for Swerve Strickland. He lost the match to Bobby Lashley, right? They never had a rematch. And now he loses to Ricochet. After the match, Prince Nana, he tried to tend to Swerve on the mat, and he had the embassy robe. Ricochet pie-faced Nana, and he stole the robe, and he puts the embassy robe on, and he leaves up the ramp with it, and that's how they close the show. I liked the match. I thought it was a good match. Clearly, it was designed to only be phase one of what is going to be a 2 or 3 phase program, it's a series of matches between these two men. I kind of compare it to when MJF and CM Punk worked the first time, right? Their first match was not the dog collar match. Their first match was on Dynamite. And it was very clear it was going to lead to at least one more match between the two. And it did. They had the dog collar match at Revolution. And I suspect that's exactly how this is going to go. Because it was the same thing with MJF and Punk. They had their match. I want to say their match. This would be crazy if I remember this to the day. I want to say their Dynamite match, their first match was on Groundhog Day. Could be wrong. I know it was in Chicago. But I think it may have been on Groundhog Day. And then like a month later is when they had the dog collar match. Now you have Grand Slam coming up next weekend. To me, that's too quick. You don't turn right back around, I think, and do a match at Grand Slam. I think you wait the extra few weeks and you just save the rematch with a stipulation. It would be kind of funny if it was a dog collar match. But you save the rematch with a stip for Revolution on March 9th. That's what you do. And I suspect that's what they'll end up doing here. Ricochet stealing the embassy robe. I mean, that alone tells you that obviously we're not done here. And now Swerve has something to fight for because he knows what that robe means. He knows what it means to Nana. Nana means something to him. And so now the mission is for him to get revenge and get his win back over Ricochet for what he did, but also get the embassy robe back. But as a first match, I liked it. The finish was a little wonky. Again, why that wasn't a DQ? Because they didn't want it to be a DQ. That's why. But what it does is it creates the need for a rematch, and it gives Swerve cover for having lost to this man. It wasn't a clean win by any means. So that's his out. And now he'll come back and seek revenge. And we've seen Swerve come back and have big blow-off stipulation matches with people before, and usually doesn't end very well for the other person. He usually ends up very bloody and very violent. Maybe the scissors will be involved this time, the golden scissors, right? We didn't see them in this match. But I thought the match was good. So when you really look at this show from top to bottom, I look at this show and I see more good than bad. It was certainly a big turnaround from last week's show. I thought last week's show was just an absolute fucking bore. This week's show had a lot to like about it, including the main event. And, Ricochet getting a big win and Hobbs and Bill. And again, I'm not enamored with MJF working with some of the people they have him working with right now, but we could see where it's headed as far as him and Hangman. I'm looking forward to that. The women's stuff with Mariah and Toni, I thought was fantastic. And we had a great tag team match, with the Hounds taking on the Callis family. So there were a lot of things on this show that I could point to and say, that was enjoyable. I can see where this is going. This is something that could be built for the future. This was a good first match. I'm looking forward to the rematch, right? I mean, that's all I ask. Just give me more to like than not like on these shows. And I don't think it's a coincidence that I am sitting here telling you this on a show where the Death Riders stuff was contained to one segment. It is easily the worst thing on the show consistently every single week. And if they insist on continuing it, which clearly they're going to for a while, then I would prefer to see it in much smaller doses. And we got that tonight, and we got a lot of other good stuff. I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to see a pattern develop here when it comes to that. I thought this was a thumbs up show. Here's the Twitter poll. It is a thumbs up poll. Not by a lot, but it is a thumbs up poll, and I don't remember the last time Dynamite had one of these. 54.2% thumbs up, 45.8% thumbs down. That is with over 1,100 votes in so far. So positive score, not overwhelmingly positive, but it is a positive score here tonight for Dynamite. Yes, and Sid says, and Chris Jericho was there. Yes, but again, one very brief segment that led into something that I actually liked. So I can't complain about that. Oh, believe me, there's stuff I can complain about. But I did like the Bill and the Hobbs stuff. All right, let's get to your super chats, guys. Hey, there's Maze the Great in the chat with us. What's going on, Maze? And David. Got to shout out David again for that big bomb he dropped. All right. Let's see what we got going on here. As always, I want to start with the early super chats that came in. I thank you all, by the way, for the support. Very much appreciated. Shout out to Dark Effect. Says, hope you're feeling a lot better. Your voice of reason and level-headedness were missed. Much respect from everyone in the GWO. Thank you, Dark Effect. My voice of reason was the voice of someone else, according to many of you who listened to the podcast on Sunday and thought that I had gotten somebody to fill in for me, as if I would ever do that. Who the hell am I going to find to fill in for me? On those shows? Come on. Nobody can do it the way that I do it. Randy Bobandy. Somebody thought Willem Dafoe was guest hosting the Sound Off last week, which I think if I could get Willem Dafoe to guest host, I probably would just let him, because I think that would be great. But no, it was not Willem Dafoe. Although I did sound like a goblin. I still do a little bit. I'm not fully recovered yet, as you can hear. Randy Bobandy. Congrats on re-signing your polar bear. Yes, thank you. Mets versus Orioles in the World Series. Calling it now. I don't know about the Orioles, but for all the money that was spent on Soto alone, the Mets better be in the World Series for the next 10 years. Jerome Eugenio, happy Wednesday. Glad to see you feeling better, Solomonster. Thank you, Jerome. We have Nick. Says, my brother spent over $2,000 in total for the trip and show, plane, accommodations, and the show itself, and was reallocated to a seat that was probably worth $200 when he sent $700, and he can't get a refund. Well, that's what I'm talking about. To go back to the Grand Slam stuff and why some people are very upset. You know, it would be one thing if you were treated to a ticket that was truly of equal value relative to where you thought you were going to be sitting. But it's hard. I mean, you've just downgraded from a building that is so much bigger that there are just going to be people. There's no way that you could, there's just no way that you could equal for them the experience that they would have gotten if they paid for really good seats to go to that stadium show, and now it's been moved to a much smaller building, unless you put them in the front row. But again, it just changes the whole dynamic. But just to not even offer refunds to people who want refunds is inexcusable. And whether that's an AEW thing or likely, more likely, the ticket vendor, whoever's responsible for that policy, it's wrong. And I can understand why people would be, because again, this is not a case where somebody like the fan fucked up and made a mistake. Oh, I bought the wrong ticket, or you know what, I changed my mind, I don't want to go. Like this is on the company for making this change. And so the fact that somebody would be denied a refund if they want to get a refund is just, it just blows my mind. Like I said, people have a right to be upset about that. David Thiering, the $150 bomb. Say his name and he appears. The monster has returned. Sounds like you are doing better, good sir. Sending my wishes your way for that to continue. And Pete Alonso is returning to the Mets. Hopefully the Mets contend and beat the Dodgers this year. Oh, they will. We're gonna beat that ass. That's what we're gonna do. Thank you, David. MGM Ballin, celebrating 7 months of membership. Glad you're back and better than ever. I don't know about better than ever, but I am back. I enjoyed the show tonight besides the Death Rider. Yes, keyword death. Which is exactly what they are on this show. They are death. Maddie, I love you, brother, but my voice ain't ready for that. I'm still healing. I'm not doing an Excalibur pile driver. It's not happening. I'll do one pile driver. It'll set me back 3 weeks. Bobby's World says, good to have you back. My girlfriend was going to be upset if you came back before you were ready. LOL. Well, the doctor did say I should probably take another day or two to just not speak. Because he knows I do these shows. Like, don't do a show, speaking for 2 hours straight is a bad idea. So I took Monday and Tuesday. I missed shows on Monday and Tuesday. I said, as long as I hear that my voice is better and I can speak, I'll just shut up during the day and we'll do a show at night. So I mostly took his advice. Joseph, what's going on, Joseph? No Jake Roberts tonight. Glad you're better, Solo. Yeah, Jake took the night off. Tech Nation. Thank you, Tech Nation. Thank you for your 24 months of membership. DX Extreme. I DM'd you the first of 2 Be the Booker polls. 113 matches to vote as we determine Solo Supercard 10. The Sound Off Rumble. Well, when I get around to checking my DMs, I will give it a look. I'm very behind on things, so if I don't get to it right away, I will eventually check my DMs. Thank you. I assume that's David. Thank you, David. Skywalker. Yes, Maddie. I do. Because, do you remember when Kofi called you John Laurinaitis? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. See, I knew then that man was a heel. All you people didn't know that. I knew it back then, and that was 2012. Now you see I was right the entire time. Talking about Kofi, by the way. Guy's always been a fucking heel. Skywalker. What are your thoughts on Hulk Hogan's comments on the Pat McAfee show? That he knew he was going to be booed before he went out on stage. I'll talk more briefly about Hogan on Sunday, but I've said it before. I don't know how many times I could say it. If his lips are moving, he's lying. Don't believe a word the man says. He is a pathological liar. Dev to Dust. What would you rather experience? Knicks winning the NBA Finals at Madison Square Garden or the Mets winning the World Series at Citi Field? What do you think? Come on. Do I even need to say anything here? Come on, man. George with the $10 super chat. Glad you were feeling better. Here's a dad joke. What do you call a T-Rex that's been beaten up? Dinosaur. That was definitely a dad joke. It's a pretty good one as far as dad jokes go. Yes, BlissFan. I know BlissFan is a big Knicks fan. I knew that. So BlissFan would have a very different answer than I would to that question. We'll send BlissFan to Madison Square Garden for the big win, and I'll go to Citi Field. How about that? BlissFan, I have a question for you. I'm going to turn it back around. I'm actually going to ask you a question. My question to you, BlissFan. If you were presented with the opportunity, tickets, to go to Madison Square Garden, excuse me, to go to Madison Square Garden for Game 7 of the NBA Finals to watch the New York Knicks win a championship, or tickets to go to WrestleMania to watch Alexa Bliss in the women's championship match potentially win a women's world title, what would you choose? Choose carefully. What would you choose? Indigo. Always good to hear from Indigo. Much respect. You don't sound like a WBLS late night DJ anymore. I had somebody say that I sounded like a like an R&B DJ, like just playing the tunes at like 1 a.m. on the radio. Says, happy you're feeling a bit better. Your return was better than Charlotte. I think I got a better reaction than she did. All right, BlissFan says Alexa winning a title at WrestleMania. See, BlissFan is a true fan, man. See, that's why he has BlissFan in his name and not Knicks fan. I thought that would be like a Sophie's Choice type situation, but he was very quick. He's like, no, Alexa. But now, what if you chose the WrestleMania tickets and you went and she was supposed to win, but Charlotte didn't want to do the job and Charlotte won? And so you could have gone to Madison Square Garden to see the Knicks win, and you weren't there, and Alexa ends up not winning the title. What would you do? Which jail would we have to bail you out of? Joseph Stewart, what is your favorite to least favorite WWE album? Full Metal, The Music Volume 2, Volume 3, Volume 4, and Volume 5. You know, I have a very sentimental connection to Full Metal. I remember going on the hunt for that album when it first dropped. That was in 96, right? I think 96. It had the yellow spine on the CD. I think I would go Full Metal and then Volume 3. And then Volume 4. And then Volume 2 and then Volume 5. I know Volume 5 had that stupid Pie song that The Rock sang. But I think I would do it in that order. Full Metal, 3, 4, 2, and then 5. That's how I would rank them. Oz Inglorious. Glad you're feeling better, Solo. $8.99 made my vocal cords hurt listening to it. How do you think I felt? And that's coming off a 3-hour Royal Rumble stream the night before. When you're at 100%, gonna need you to find and launch Elon into the sun. I'd love to. Just tell me when and where. We'll do it together. Also, Harley speaks several languages and is hot as fuck. Oh, she's very hot. She's a star, man. I mean, she looks like a star. She's got the charisma and the personality. She's got that outgoing personality, but she's also multi-talented. Like, she could do it all. She could probably do commentary too if you gave her the chance. Joey Jojo Jr. Firstly, glad that you're sounding better. As an Australian, it's disappointing how Grand Slam has been handled. I hope the show is fun at least. I spent a few dollars when I thought it was at Suncorp. Look, I mean, they've got some great matches on that card. That tag match with Ospreay and Omega, Toni Storm and Mariah May, Buddy Matthews and Okada. So I don't doubt that the matches are going to be great. And hopefully the crowd in that... I actually think there's a much better chance that you'll have a much louder, hotter crowd because it is a smaller, more densely packed venue than they would have been in. So I think as a show, it'll be fine, but it's just the handling of it. The handling of it from start to finish has been just a complete and total disaster. Everything that can go wrong has gone wrong. And they have not been forthcoming with the information that people have wanted. And if they didn't have the information, then, you want to assign some blame to Warner Brothers Discovery for that too. I'm sure they're also to blame. Maybe they didn't have all their ducks in a row until just a few weeks ago, but whoever you want to blame, it just reflects poorly on Tony Khan and AEW. It just makes it look like they don't know what they're doing. This is supposed to be a major event for them. Turned into a major black eye. Oz and Glorious, Mercedes won't drop until she overtakes Jade's run. How many more days does she have to catch up to Jade? Does anybody know? Offhand, I don't trying to think how many days that Jade was champ. I don't remember. Anyway, Justin G, thank you for the gifted membership. There's our boy, Jake Finn, 4 dem cakes. Oz and Glorious, February 5th, 2001. 279th episode of Nitro. Dustin Rhodes cut a promo on Ric Flair. 24 years later, 279th Dynamite, he dropped one on MJF with Shivani on commentary for both shows. Now you have to tell me where you saw that. There's no way you came up with that on your own. Well, that's kind of cool, I guess. Was it on the same channel? Was it I guess it would have been TNT, right? Nitro would have still been on TNT. It's still the Turner Networks, right? So TNT, TBS. It's kind of wild. 508 days for Jade Cargill as the TBS champion. Mercedes is not even at a year yet. So I don't know that they're going to wait for her to overtake Jade. You might be right. But there's still enough time left to go where she could drop it before then. I would say the earliest that she would drop it would be a year after she won it, which would be Double or Nothing. And 508 days. I mean, yeah, no. I mean, I would say Double or Nothing around that time sounds about right. And whether it's Statlander, whether it's Jamie Hayter, there's lots of potential candidates on that roster for that spot, and hopefully they can build it up like a big deal. yeah, again, the thing about Mercedes' run, she's having great matches with almost everybody she's in the ring with, whether it's in AEW or elsewhere. But it's just the way that they have booked her and portrayed her on these shows, it just hasn't done her any favors. But you can't argue the quality of the matches that she's had. The only really bad match I could think of that Mercedes has had during this run is with Britt Baker. They had a terrible match. Every other match that she's had is at least good, if not great. So it's not really about the quality of the matches. It's about the presentation of the character. It's about the booking. And not booking her with as many compelling opponents as they should. And they have plenty to choose from on that roster. That's what intrigues me about the Harley Cameron thing and her putting Harley down. You're a loser. It's you know what it is? It's the classic story of Sasha Banks and Bayley from NXT. Right before Bayley beat her to win the NXT championship, it was very similar where, you know, you're a loser, you can't be the champion, and, you know, that kind of stuff. And it built. And we ended up with one of the greatest women's matches that I've ever seen. Just an incredible night in the Barclays Center that night with Bayley's big NXT championship win. And I feel like Harley, you could build a similar story around her. It's just it takes time. You know, she just won one match, the first match of her career. This is something, I mean, dude, we're talking 6 to 9 months minimum down the road. But I do feel like there's the potential there for that kind of story. Super Pony, more likely to win a world title, Finn Balor or Kevin Owens? Kevin Owens. The Juliet, at least you no longer sound like Meltzer. No, I don't say and you know as many times as he does. I'd like to think I sound better than that. Johnny Vegas, voice is getting better, brother. Day by day, bit by bit. I'm still not where I need to be, but I'm well enough to do a show. So that's what matters. And like legitimately, like during the day, I'm trying not to use my voice as much since I was told not to. But it's just a matter of waiting and letting it work itself out. And, you know, I thought I had pneumonia. So at least we were able to rule that out. But, you know, with what I was feeling in the chest and everything, I might have pneumonia. I mean, that's how bad it was. So we'll get there. Hopefully a few more days we'll get there. David, with 9 months of membership, can we launch the learning tree gimmick into the sun? Thanks for the review. Looking forward to episode 900 of The Sound Off. Yes, this Sunday is episode 900. Which means we're only 100 away. It's pretty crazy. And Oz and Glorious, post that fact on the fact about Dustin. I wonder, like, sometimes, how do people even come up with like a statistic like that, like, and that quickly? 279 episodes of Nitro, Dustin Rhodes cut a promo. 279 episodes of Dynamite, Dustin Rhodes cut a promo. Like, who's sitting there prepared to like come up with that sort of information? Who's even thinking of that? It's a good stat though. I mean, it's good to know, but you would think people would have more important things to waste their time on. Like talking about Toni Storm and what she was wearing tonight. I can't get over that. She looked amazing. But I guess that was the point, right? Because Mariah May calls herself the Glamour, walks around like she's a sex symbol, And so she was dressed up like Mariah May, right? Doing the sultry poses and everything. And Super Pony. Any chance Sammy against KO main events the Chamber? I don't think so, no. I don't think so. Just because you got John Cena in the Elimination Chamber and Punk is going to be in there, and that's just so much bigger. I don't see how you don't close. If you're going to have multiple chamber matches, by the way, you're going to have a women's one and a men's one. So I think you open the show with the women's, you close the show with the men's. If they do Owens and Sammy on that show, which I still figure, I still figure that's the Toronto match. I had some people messaging me, oh, well, you know, he gave him a package pile driver, so he's going to be gone for the next month. And I'm like, Sammy ain't missing that Toronto show. Like, Cody Rhodes took a package pile driver, and he was back in fucking 2 weeks. So, no reason that Sami Zayn can't be back within a couple of weeks. Randy Orton took a regular, very shitty-looking pile driver, and he's been gone for fucking 4 months. But Cody was back in like 2 weeks. So I still think that that's the Elimination Chamber match, and then Orton-Owens is the play for WrestleMania. Where that leaves Sami Zayn, I don't know. It could be a match with Karrion Kross. Like, I don't know. I don't know where else Sammy would go if they blow off him and Owens at the Chamber. I don't know. David, yeah. That was the first thing I ruled out. Yeah, it wasn't. I took a COVID test that day. So it wasn't COVID. Yuri says, coworker and I had a similar thing to you. The voice/chest thing stuck with him for weeks. For me, it was the nasal congestion that did not want to leave. Yeah, well, that didn't want to leave either. Only now has it finally started to subside. Dude, it was just ridiculous. Like, I have been on every... everything, like every decongestant, every expectorant and suppressant, and they have these special, they're like lozenges for the throat that they have like honey in it to kind of like soothe the throat, but it's also got like manuka honey, which you should look up because it's very good. Somebody recommended it to me, and I couldn't find them anywhere here. I had to order them off Amazon, but I have them now. And I think they've helped. I think they've helped a little bit. So I've been trying everything. Anything and everything. Flonase, he prescribed that for me. I'm on antibiotic. Oh, I mean, everything you could think of. Like, I can't miss shows. Like, this is what I do. I can't miss shows. So naturally, the one thing I use the most, which is my voice, is the one thing I lose. But it's all good. It's all good. We're on the mend. It's all that matters. Yep, plenty of hot tea with honey. Pour like a fucking half bottle of honey in this mug, actually. This mug right here. Mix it all up. The only thing that sucks about hot tea is when it hits your lips, man. It burns your lips. No bueno. Duff says, did Orton get re-hurt legitimately? You know, I was wondering that the other day. I'm starting to wonder if they did that angle. I don't think they did, but I'm starting to wonder if maybe they did that angle to cover for a legitimate injury that, you know, he really has. Because I was shocked that he wasn't at the Rumble. You know, I really was. But if the plan all along was, look, we want to do this angle where we really heat up Owens as a heel. So we're going to have him destroy you. And people will hate him for it. But here's what we're going to do. You know, we're going to do him and Cody at the Rumble. And then we're going to go to him and Sammy. And so it doesn't make sense to bring you back if the idea is to do you and him at Mania. So we're just going to keep you at home. It could just be as simple as that. And it really, if you think about it, it really wouldn't make sense for Orton to be back now and not immediately want to go after Owens. and do Owens and Sammy instead. So it could just be as simple as that. But the thought did cross my mind, like, I don't know, maybe he's hurt, like legit. But I'm sure he's not. I'm sure he's fine. RDS Harry, welcome back, brother. We missed you. Thank you. And Jimmy Butler got traded to the Warriors. These trades have been crazy. When did that happen? Why do all these trades happen when I'm doing a show? Probably because I'm doing a show almost every night. That's probably why. At least I saw the Pete Alonso news right before I went live. Groovy Goose, add this to hot tea and chicken noodle soup fund. Thank you. Your $1.99 will buy me a cup of noodles, which I think has about 3,000 milligrams of sodium in it. God, I haven't had a cup of noodles in, Jesus, how long has it been? College? Probably. I used to have them all the time. It was the easiest thing in the world. Just add water. But like the salt and everything in it, my God, it was just like, when you really realize how much is in there, it's like, I can't be doing this. Fucking ankles will swell. Like, I can't. I can't be doing that. Blue Jay says you need some Mexican broncolin cough syrup. What's so special about that? Oz says stay hydrated, humidify, clear mucus, and fuck the Fed. Yeah, I thought about getting a humidifier to keep, like, you know, in the office area here, but there's so many electronics. I don't know how that would work. Just seems to me like when you have a lot of electronics in one particular room, having a humidifier is probably not the best idea. Like, even if you aim it away, wouldn't that be a problem? Oh, no. Justin says, I used to live off cup of soup. Probably why I have 6 stents now. Oh, my God. Now, I have a feeling that it probably has more to do. There's probably more to it than just that, I suspect. Yuri says, was raised in a family that loves hot tea. Mom would crush at least 10 cups a day. I love it too, but she got me beat. Yeah, that's a lot of tea. What was she putting in that tea? I wonder. You could put anything in there. You know what I should have done? I didn't even think of it until now. Should have poured some whiskey in there. I've actually heard that it could actually help. I don't know if that's true. It's probably some alcoholic that came up with that. But I should have tried that. A little bit of whiskey. Help the throat. Devin from New Jersey. In honor of Black History Month, if Solomonster did a list of his top 10 favorite black actors, would Forrest Whitaker, Anthony Anderson, and CCH Pounder be on it? Forrest Whitaker probably would be, and CCH Pounder definitely would be. All three of them, if you don't know, all three of them were at various times part of the cast of The Shield, which is one of my all-time favorite shows. Craig with a $5 super chat. I finally joined after all of this time. Glad you are feeling better, sir. My best to you. Hey, Craig, thank you. That's Craig's first super chat on a live stream. Thank you, brother. Wasn't I sick recently in December? Yeah, I was sick with a cold in December. These things tend to happen after House of Glory shows. I meet a lot of people. I'm around a lot of people. And then invariably I get sick. Like if I just stay here and I go about my business, I go to the gym, I go to the store, like I'll be fine. It's when I'm around all of these wrestling fans or I drink Hulk Hogan's shitty beer and then I get sick. See, I drank another one at the Hog Show too. I'm telling you, it was that fucking beer. I'm telling you. Anyway, we are bordering on 500 likes. We're like 13 away. Can you get to 500? Can we do it? We're at 487 right now. Let's see if we can get it done. Right now, let's be the booker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the booker.
We can break 500 live. I believe in you in the way that Gotham City believes in Harvey Dent. The sicko fans. Yeah, probably. That's probably what it was. All the sickos. I'm telling you, man, remember when I first started doing these streams every week, remember it was 2020. And everybody was on lockdown. Everybody was at home. And I swear, I don't think I had a cold for like 3 years. It was the best, man. And then I started going out again and I got fucking sick. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to go back into hibernation. Because it was great. I didn't get sick for 3 years. It was, well, outside of getting COVID, of course. Fucking 3 times. All right, here we go. We begin with MSK, the former MSK. Nash Carter and Wes Lee, the former NXT Tag Team Champions. Ah, yes, Bliss fan. Yes, thank you for correcting me. It was 2019 with Dynamite. But was I on video for those? I don't think I was on video for those early Dynamite streams. I think those were just the thumbnail and then audio only. Oh, well, this is new. Choose 2 single stars to form a makeshift team. So we all know how much I love these makeshift teams. All right, well, this is a little bit different now. We have to pick a team to oppose MSK, but we're going to pick 2 single stars and put them together, and they're going to be a tag team. This will be very interesting. This could be anything. I don't know what this is going to be. Oh. Christian Cage says, your father is dead. Spin again. What an asshole. My father is dead. How did he know? Well, I guess we have to spin again. This is the night of stipulations here. Terrible. Bruno Sammartino. Oh my God, Bruno Sammartino is going to be wrestling MSK. Let's see who his partner is going to be. I'm trying to think if I have superstar Billy Graham in here. I don't think I do. Bruno Sammartino and Kyle Fletcher. I actually have to give that the bell because I actually think that would be a pretty good match. Kyle Fletcher and Bruno Sammartino against MSK. Roderick says Bruno alone could fold MSK like pretzels if he could catch them. They'd be jumping all over the ring. It's a very unusual match, yes. All right, Women's Be the Booker begins with Rowdy Ronda Rousey. Can you imagine if Ronda Rousey had showed up in the Royal Rumble? Because nobody was mentioning her name. Imagine if Ronda Rousey had shown up on Saturday and won the Women's Royal Rumble. People would have been begging for a Charlotte Flair win. Ronda Rousey and Sky Blue. A match that nobody asked for. Men's Be the Booker. We begin with the former World Wrestling Federation champion, the Ultimate Warrior, taking his place here in the main event. Who will the Ultimate Warrior... The Ultimate Warrior is going to need somebody to carry him in this match. You know, there's a reason why his best matches were against Randy Savage. Because Randy Savage, or Rick Rude, right? Randy Savage, Rick Rude, two great wrestlers who could bump their asses off for him and lead the way. The Ultimate Warrior will be wrestling Triple H in the main event. I call this Triple H's revenge. Because there ain't no way the Warrior is going over this time. Triple H will get his win back over the Ultimate Warrior. He will get his revenge. A rematch. Yes, a rematch from WrestleMania 12. There will be no squash this time. At least not for Triple H. I'm so tempted to add a stipulation to this, just to see what kind of match they would have. I'm just curious. What kind of match will the Ultimate Warrior and Triple H have? Anarchy in the arena. Yes, as I said, Triple H will have his revenge. And as you can see here from the graphic, Triple H will take a blowtorch to the Ultimate Warrior this time. Payback for WrestleMania 12. Tell me you wouldn't pay money to see the Ultimate Warrior and Triple H in a fucking Anarchy in the Arena match. Tell me you wouldn't pay money and I'll call you a liar. You know you would. You know damn well that you would. Yuri says, Hollywood, Hearst, Helmsley. Get the shovel, brother. And Uffman says, skip the hot tea. Whiskey with a lot of lemon will clear that throat. Pete has come home. Let's go Mets. Is that a proven remedy, by the way? A little bit of whiskey with some lemon? I don't have lemon. I can go buy one. I have the whiskey, though. I'm willing to try whatever it takes. Does Jason Sensation deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? No. You should add special guest referees to be the booker. There's at least one. I won't tell you who it is, but there is a special guest referee stipulation. What is broncolin? What is that? That sounds like some kind of colon cleanse. Like what? I don't need that. I've already had a miserable 10 days. You want to add more misery to it? That's the last thing I need now. After everything I've been through this week is a fucking colon cleanse. Yeah, that's just what I need. Broncolin. I've never heard of this before. Is it Sean in the unnecessarily short shorts? No, it's not. Who is more washed, Cena or Nakamura? John Cena. John Cena is washed, but his status and his name value and who he is will carry him through this year. His opponents will help carry him through this year. But John Cena is 100% washed. Mexican steroids. Broncolin is basically a honey. I thought that said a horny and herb remedy. A honey and herb remedy. Honey and herb remedy. I will look it up. I will look it up. Let's get Toni Storm a pair of those HBK shorts. Hey, you could find them. Anyway, I got some good tips here. I've heard broncolin. I've heard whiskey and lemon. I feel like I'm on the mend already, but I may try some of these things. I may have to try some of these things. Oh man. Let's take a quick poll in the chat before we get out of here. Should I add Mariah May to be the booker as portrayed tonight by Toni Storm, as played by Toni Storm? I think I know what the answer is going to be. Thank you guys for hanging out with me here on a Wednesday after we miss Monday. I have no reason to think that I won't be here on Friday unless I take a step back for some reason. So I will be back with you live on Friday night for the SmackDown, the post-Royal Rumble edition of SmackDown, which should be big. Here's my prediction, and it's something that I pitched this after Bad Blood. I was talking about this after Hell in a Cell in October. I said, get Drew McIntyre off Raw, get him away from Punk. You want to do as close to a 1-for-1 kind of even trade in terms of like big names. You trade Drew McIntyre to SmackDown, you send AJ Styles to Raw. Well, guess what? AJ Styles was just traded in the transfer window to Monday Night Raw. And I suspect that on SmackDown Friday night, we will find out that Nick Aldis made one last deal of his own, and it was to bring Drew McIntyre over to SmackDown. And that's what I expect is going to be the big announcement. If they announce anything as far as the transfer window, which I don't see why they wouldn't, why would Raw get one last pick? SmackDown will get one. I think it'll be McIntyre. It just makes sense. It made sense to me in October, and it makes sense to me now, especially if they're talking about Priest and McIntyre at WrestleMania, then they have to be on the same show. Otherwise, that doesn't make any sense. So I suspect that is where Drew McIntyre is going to end up. We'll find out. We'll find out on Friday night. And then this weekend, episode 900, Super Bowl Sunday. Episode 900 of The Sound Off. I will give my annual Super Bowl prediction. I do it every year. Sound Off has always been a Sunday podcast, so I've been doing Super Bowl predictions on The Sound Off for years. So that'll be coming up this weekend. Blue Jay, with one last super chat here. Blue Jay says, I'm attending TNA in El Paso, Texas. Bring Hog next. We're looking at all locations, Texas among them. What can I say? I can't say anything. So all I can say is stay tuned. You never know. That's all I can say. We got a few big announcements coming up, but my lips are sealed. Be well. Stay safe. Uffman says, like Randall says, please use Toni Storm as Mariah May as your cover art for every stream. I think I might do that. I think it would get like twice the views if I did that. Like, just put her in every thumbnail. We'll see. We'll see. If nothing else, I'll make her one of the title card images in Be the Booker when we go to the Be the Booker segment. We'll put her in there. How about that? I'll see you guys back here on Friday night for the SmackDown review. Until then, take care.